All right, guys, we got a 1v1 going on here, a little quick battle, and it's already getting going. I mean, these High Elf archers are already starting to hammer into some skirmishers from the Greenskins, the Death Creepers, and the Mangy Marauders. So let's go ahead and go through our armies real quick here while things kind of get going. So I obviously went with the High Elves because why the hell wouldn't I? And I've got 2 units of Swordmasters of Hoeth in the front, flanked by 2 units of Spearmen on both sides. We went with 3 archers, a prince on a star dragon, and then a Frostheart Phoenix. A little, surprise of a unit here. Usually you don't kind of get that in the mix. And then we also went with some Illyrian Reaper archers. God, I'm sorry. I spend so much time looking at High Elf units. It's such an... Oh my God, look at it in my soul. Oh God. Do you work at Abercrombie and Fitch? Jesus. But, oh God, there it is again. Oh my God. Okay, back on point. So, yeah, good God. So, we've got some skirmishers from the Greenskins already kind of coming out here. My mentality here was to hold up the line with the Spearmen and the Swordmasters of Hoeth. I kind of find that the Spearmen are some of the best units in the High Elf roster. Unfortunately, that's not a fact because the Spearmen are so good. It's because the rest of the roster is relatively lackluster. So, when we're taking a look at the Greenskin army, he's got a nice front line of Night Goblins. He's also got the Warlord's Boys, and then a nice secondary line of Black Orcs. And that was kind of my big fear, was he's probably going to take some Black Orcs. I'm going to want to be able to oppose these. He does just have a Goblin Great Shaman, which is by no stretch of the imagination an easy thing to deal with, but it's easier, a little bit more so than, say, like a Grimgor or a Warzog, depending on the situation. He's got 2 Goblin Big Bosses, which you'll see come to pretty great use in a harassment type style role. 2 Goblin Wolf Riders, and then a back line of the Goblin firing line as it is, with the Rusty Arrows, and then 2 Goblin Archers. So let's see how this kind of pans out, right? And already we can see that the skirmishers have kind of been picked apart a little bit by our archers. Oh, also, there's an ARAKNAROK spider. Forget about that guy. Now, remember, the Frostheart Phoenix does get stronger. Let me slow this down a little bit. Does get stronger with your Winds of Magic. So I don't have a single caster other than my Lore Master of Hoeth. Lore Master of Hoeth has a lot of low-cost spells, so it allows me to keep my Winds of Magic up high so that the Frostheart Phoenix or Flamespire Phoenix can benefit from the advantage of having a higher Winds of Magic. Of course, that never really becomes the case when you're panicking trying to get shit off. Got that Frostheart Phoenix on the ARAKNAROK Spider. We have the Swordmasters who have unfortunately now turned their back to the enemy, and our archers are starting to focus on the ARAKNAROK Spider. Gotta love that High Elf. Look at that. Look at the speed of those High Elves. Got a little frontline charge here. Oh, yes. Right into our Spearmen. We already have the Goblins making contact over here. They're going to jump into the back of these Spearmen, which is not going to be too fun. Ugh. Dude, look at them just turning over like, excuse me. Boom, right across the line here we have our Night Goblins connecting. But then look at that imposing force of Black Orcs in the background. Like, that is not going to be fun for anyone, but it is going to cause a bit of a clump up here. In tabletop, if you have the front 2 lines fight in tabletop, with spears, the front 3 lines fight. When you've got High Elves, the front 4 lines fight. So that was a really cool thing about High Elves, is you could have these really long, really like strong lines of spearmen that would just kind of skewer things. The High Elf spearmen were actually very strong, despite the fact that they're relatively, weak by comparison of other units, other rank and file of other armies. But our ARAKNAROK Spider is already in bad condition here. It's being picked apart by 3 units. We have the Rusty Arrows and the Goblin firing line, as well as those skirmishers, all focusing now on my Dragon Prince. This is a really good move by Be'lakor, as our opponent. He basically kind of sandwiched between 2 units that I forgot about, and the dreaded Goblin firing line. At the same time, I did expect some sort of shenanigans from all that, so I kind of wanted them to bait them into a situation where, clearly, our Illyrian Reavers could get into the background and smash through. So since these guys are all clumped up, and I'm about to go into this, why this is important, almost all of these archers are now locked down and cannot fight, especially the Rusty Arrows, who are somewhere in this lot. And the Illyrian Reaver archers are actually pretty competent fighters. You know, I mean, weapon strength 22, not too awesome, but not too bad. Good melee strength, good melee defense. They're very, very strong skirmishers. The Shades, or I'm sorry, the Dark Riders hold like the rank as like some of the best skirmisher cav in the game, but still, they're going to get the job done. Now, what I've done over here on my line is I've staggered my archers, because as you can see, the Goblin Big Boss has already gotten into my back line. It's going to harass my archers here, and it's going to force these spearmen to kind of buckle down and help out. Now, what this does is, this is an old Total War Warhammer 1 tactic of keeping your archers in blocks separated. You keep them in blocks rather than long spaghetti lines, because then they can pivot faster to shoot to anything that's trying to wrap around them. So you see right here, the ARAKNAROK Spider came and made contact with this unit, while these two were able to fire onto it. These two have been knocked, or this one unit has been knocked out, so these two can now fire onto it. So you give yourself an overlapping fire support for your entire back line when you stagger your fighting or your archery. You see the front line here is kind of going a little bit dicey. The Swordmasters of Hoeth are really not doing too well against all this matched up opposition, with both units of those Night Goblins, both units of those Black Orcs, really starting to hammer on them. But the Lore Master is there to help save the day for him. Our first Goblin charge right onto that Great Goblin, I'm sorry, the Goblin Big Shaman, Great Shaman, Big Shaman, Goblin guy. And here's where the Froststrike Phoenix kind of comes in use. He's really good at chasing things down. He's really fast. He can kind of stay on things. He can move across the battlefield in a very nimble kind of manner. You can have him go from attacking one unit to just picking up and flying off to the next. So he's going to go actually chase down the Goblin Great Shaman and ensure... Oh, toasty! Toasty! Ensure that Goblin Great Shaman does not come back. But we do have our ARAKNAROK Spider, who did return its morale and is coming back to chew up some high... Oh, God, it's drooling. Oh, God. Some high elves here. I kind of get a little bit of an overview here. We can see that those Goblin Big Bosses have just been harassing my backline. They've moved on now from that one unit into this unit. The Spearmen is just kind of giving chase. Our Illyrian Reaver Archers have completely chased off the Rusty R's, and that was kind of their big role. Yeah, no, never mind. It wasn't. I wanted them to chase things off, though, and it wasn't the Rusty R's like I thought I had put them on yet. So one unit of Spearmen has now fled, meaning our whole entire right line is buckled and it's going to start collapsing in on itself. Ooh. Got our dragon starting to eating up some goblins in the background. Our Froststrike Phoenix coming up. We got our Illyrian Reaver Archers shooting apart the Rusty Arrows. And we see that RAGNAROK is going to go ahead for our big dragon while we kind of try and maintain this back line, which is kind of really collapsed on itself. But again, with the ability to keep these archers separated, I can now move them out of the fight and get them to start shooting back in on the enemy. But you know what dragons like? Clumped up infantry. I'll get there, don't you worry. Illyrian Reaver Archers picking apart those Goblin Archers a little bit more. The big thing right here is that ARAKNAROK Spider. That thing is still pretty scary, because we don't have a ton of anti-large left. The Froststrike Phoenix is coming back as well after it's kind of done its work with the Rusty Arrows out there. Uh-oh. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Oh, toasty Black Orcs. That caused both those units to flee. We're in good shape now. We got this Goblin War Boss is about to flee. We got this RAGNAROK who's on its last leg. 8-legged joke. And this one last unit of Black Orcs is the only thing that's really kind of holding the line here. But we're buckling in on that RAGNAROK, getting ready to give it the long spear of the law. That's right. Oh, yeah. God. You know, it's funny because I never used dragons in tabletop. Dragons in 8th edition, unfortunately, if you were fighting against anything with a cannon, could be killed in one shot. So it was never really overly worthwhile to... Oh, shit. Use a dragon for me. But in Total War Warhammer, it's nice because I can finally bring a dragon all the time like I've always wanted to. with the Frostheart Phoenix coming back here. Now the Frostheart Phoenix hasn't done a ton for me as far as like outright damage, but it's done a lot for me as far as being able to hold up the skirmishers in the back line. Those skirmishers could have charged into my back line, into my archers, and that would have been bad news bears. And he's also done a really good job of chasing down any high-value targets that have started to flee. And the Illyrian Reaver archers have really have been in this fight the entire time. Usually, skirmishers, and both of our skirmishers really have been in this fight this entire time. Skirmishers typically die out in the first kind of couple crucial minutes of combat, either tying something up or getting those first initial volleys in. So let's take a look at this post-battle report here. As you can see, 85 kills from those Illyrian Reaver archers, 26 on the Frostheart, so again, not huge, but I will take it. The Prince got a lot of really good Dragon Breaths out with just about 90 kills, and then 135 and 71 from our Swordmasters of Hoeth, so real great use out of them. Our archers, 31, 3, and 20. We did have them focusing a lot on bigger targets and then switching to bad targets, I would say. I didn't use them to the best of their advantage, but they did their job. For 475 points each, I will take it. Let's take a look at Bellacor's army. His Black Orcs definitely reaped a tally here. 70, 55, and 148. Just chewing up spearmen, chewing up Swordmasters of Hoeth, really doing the Lord's work. But then the big boss has got 23 and 59 as they were in our back line, just kind of harassing through our archers. And then the ARAKNAROK Spider only got a whopping 44. Usually get a little bit more out of those guys. But that kind of concludes our fight for here today, guys. I wanted to take a really uncommon army. High Elves are probably the hardest army to play right now. They're very micro-intensive. Their units are very kind of papery. You really have to use them very well against an army that is more often than not around the top of the power curve when it comes to the tier system. Greenskins have been very strong for a long time. They have a very good kit army. A lot of good strong units. But hopefully this gives you guys a really good idea of how to use certain units in certain scenarios and how to use, or how not to use units in other scenarios. Mainly just watch me. But thanks for watching here today, guys. We got plenty planned for this week as far as lore goes. I'm going to try and make it so that lore comes out every Tuesday and Thursday. And we have quick battles throughout the week as well, with mainly our streams being on Saturdays and Sundays. So that's kind of the schedule I'm trying to work myself into now that I've done this. Transition this like fully to full-time. Like there's that kind of weird period when you transition to a full-time anything that you're like, okay, let me kind of feel this out for like a week or two, maybe 3. So I've now kind of put myself on a set schedule, so it's a little bit easier for me to operate. So expect more scheduled goodies. But thanks for watching here today, guys. Have a good one and take care.